All right, good evening. I hope everyone can hear me well. My name is Miss Jacqueline Pinkney. You can call me Miss Jackie, or you may call me Miss Pinkney. As you can see today, the main focus of the class will be vocabulary building. As you can see, we're going to look at synonyms and antonyms of just some regular words as a way to kind of help encourage you to start looking at words differently if that's not how you do so already. And also looking at prefixes and suffixes. And also, in addition, I add a little bonus, some root words. So, vocabulary traditionally, well, when we think about in the history of test prep, vocabulary has always been important. It's been super important. It's not as stressful now, I would say, when I look at the test and how it was structured, say, 10 years ago, right? 10, 15 years ago when I started teaching test prep. Before, especially for the SAT, vocabulary was sort of this huge undertaking. Learning more vocabulary was a huge undertaking because there were the part of the reading test included, like in the different sections, because it used to be divided up into 10 sections, right? It alternated between, reading, writing slash grammar, math, and it just kept on going back and forth between the 10 sections. And in the reading section, it used to be that it started off with just filling in the blank with vocabulary words, whether it's one blank or two blanks, right? And basically, either you knew the word or you didn't. Now, you could use context clues just like we use in just regular reading, but it was a lot harder back then because you only had one sentence and there wasn't that much of a context, to be honest. Yes, there were clues, right? But it was a whole lot harder, and you probably will agree with me that um, whenever you just have one sentence as opposed to a whole paragraph, to help you establish the tone and things like that. Um, as we've kind of gone over in the past, right? That it's harder for you to eliminate answer choices. Now, so before we move on, I want to review, because we're talking about eliminating answer choices. I want to quickly review what we went over yesterday. Hopefully you were with us. We talked about how, eliminating answer choices can help us to arrive at the answer. And we even struggled on one of them, and because of the nature of the question, right? But the strategy remains the same no matter how easy or hard the question is. You're going to come across hard ones, right? So I'm going to go back to that real quick right before we dive into vocabulary building, right? So just one second. Because I really wanted to finish that up. The last question, so the last um, yesterday, just real quick, let's see. Wow, wait. Let me see if this will do correctly as I like it to do. And no. Actually, hold on. Oops, sorry. That was my mistake. See if this will do better now. Yes, there we go. There we go. So this was from yesterday. This is just a quick recap, okay? And it's not acting in the way that I would like it to, but that's okay. So when we looked at we had looked at the types of questions that we would come across, right, whenever we're doing our process of elimination, right, and of course included in there are vocabulary-based questions, right, which is what we're going to focus on today. But just to finish up, right, and so especially even in relating to the vocabulary, right, there is eliminating helps us to get to the best option. especially when we don't know immediately the right option, right? The right option, traditionally, right? We want to get there as quickly as possible, but sometimes we just don't know, right? There's maybe we just don't understand that part of the passage. Maybe we don't understand the words, right? So we go based on what we do know to help us eliminate um, answer choices, hopefully at least three, so that we can narrow it down to two, so that we can just, in the end, just guess, right? Sometimes we guess right, sometimes we guess wrong, but at least we improve our chances, right? So that strategy is always, it's going to be the same. So basically, what we did is we read this passage, right? And it was quite, for me, it was fun. It was fun to read, right? Anna Karenina, right? This Russian novel by Leo Tolstoy, right? And we saw how this young man was just, he just realized how much in love he was with his friend. And so any normal movement, any normal encounter just overwhelmed him, right? Because of that love he felt for her. So he went to go see her. So we went to the process yesterday of reading the passage actively, right? And I encourage you to do that. Of course, it took longer for me because I'm modeling what should be going through your head. Of course, I narrated it more than you normally would narrate because you don't have time in the test to narrate to that length. But I was trying to give you a sense of the tone, to give you a sense of how you can also paint a picture and kind of create a film in your own mind as you are reading. Now, of course, pieces of fiction are easier to do that as opposed to nonfiction, but you still can have that level of narration in terms of as you're processing the information and connecting to the information. So we read that. We read about this guy deeply in love with this girl who was his friend, and then he's like, "Bam! Wow, I love her," right? And then we went through the process of going to the question step by step. Now that's a whole nother technique that you all could use in terms of, you know, what how you should approach, reading in terms of, do you read everything first and then do the questions, right? Or do you read and do the questions, at the same time, simultaneously, which is kind of what we did just because our PPT was set up that way, right? And you will find that the questions kind of go in order based on which part of the text it's referencing, whether it's kind of the beginning, the middle, the end, or sometimes like a whole general main idea one, right? And so we did that, and we saw that it was a little bit easier, and it helped us to eliminate certain answers, because we weren't, our thinking wasn't clouded by the whole passage, right? When you're just going step by step, then you're like, okay, at least this is the only part that I need to focus on, what I've just read, as opposed to trying to digest everything at once and then going back and trying to answer questions based on your memory, right? So in the end, you're going to choose what's best for you. But anyway, so we read, we did the questions, we eliminated and narrowed down some of the questions that we could answer quickly, and some of them not so much, right? And then going back to the vocabulary, which is going to be our main focus, right? When you see here, say, for example, number two, that's a vocabulary question, vocabulary and context, right? And so the technique that you want to use for vocabulary context that I suggest is always try to provide your own word, right? Assess for yourself, what type of word is it, and how is it being used, and what other word can I use to substitute for it? Which synonym can I use to substitute for it, right? And so having in this way, the vocabulary is important, not to say that, that you need to, yeah, you still need to know words, yes, right? But at least it's not where you are, so, how should I, limited, right? Because you have the whole text to help you, right? Where it's not just one sentence, right? So here you look at once again, what's surrounding the word. You look at the context, right? You can see what is there, and then you can substitute. words that you feel could be in place for that word. So, for example, with 10, we use swarmed, right? And we could say gathered, filled in, gathered around, right? Were met up of some sort, right? And of course, now the answer is gathered, right? I can't remember the exact words. You may remember what I had said, right? So, but it's not in relation to bees, right? Because a lot of times when we think of the word swarmed, we think about what we associate with it, which is still a good way of learning words, right? It's still a good way of learning words, but we also want to make sure that, does that association fit the context that we have here, right? Because words have multiple definitions. When you look in the dictionary, which I used to have to do when I was in school. I don't know how many people actually use a physical dictionary now. But when I had to look up words, we did not have Google. We did not have the internet, so we actually had to use the physical dictionary to look up words, and we saw how there were multiple definitions, sometimes up to 10 definitions, maybe more, depending on the word, right? And so yeah, but in the English language and what we in our regular everyday vernacular, we don't use all of the definitions. We don't use all of the usages, that the word can be, associated with, can be used for, right? Can be defined by. So when we think about swarmed, we think about bees swarming, but bugs swarming of some sort, right? And so that's how C can be confusing. C can be a trick. Where I could see how someone would want to choose flu just because of that association, right? But we want to make sure that we open our minds and expand what we start with what we know, and then we build on that. Okay. Let's see. Did we have another vocabulary? Yes, we did. Here we go. So with number 8, we had the vocabulary one. And once again, you try to substitute your own word as used in line 20. Conjured most nearly means what, right? So when we go back to line 20, we see he says, be quiet, stupid. He conjured his heart. And the more he tried to compose himself, the more breathless he found himself, right? So he's trying to convince himself to calm down, right? Or maybe he's trying to calm his heart, right? So it's okay to reuse words that are actually in the text, right? So and it's or to compose. Yeah, we could say calm, compose, right? That's what the were the words used right after. So we know that's what he was trying to do, right? We know that before that he says he was saying to himself, "You mustn't be excited. You must be calm. What's the matter with you? What do you want? Be quiet, stupid." Yeah, it sounds like he's going kind of crazy, right? So, but you can use the words that were already used in the text. Try not to make it hard for yourself. So we saw calm, we saw compose, right? And so we want something maybe that's close to that, right? He tried to calm himself down, calm his heart, but try not to freak out, right? So when we go back to that, right? So we have begged, created, summoned, tricked, right? And so we try to pick the word that best matches that situation, right? So, and in this case, we said begged. So he tried to convince, himself, wait, you're okay, you're fine, calm down, right? And so creative, would he try to create something in his heart? What do we know about the word create to help us to understand if this is the right word or not, right? And that's where our using synonyms and talking ourselves through definitions can help us, right? Summons, to conjure, summon, when we know to conjure could be kind of like I think of the word, in magical terms, right? With witches and wizards, right? They're trying to Harry Potter conjure up something, right? Create something, and so create and summon. They're very similar in that way. And when you see those two similar definitions, you want to go ahead and eliminate those as well. And then tricked. Maybe someone may think he's trying to, when you think convince, trick himself, right? But when you're convincing, you're not necessarily trying to trick, right? You're trying to fool. Is he trying to fool himself? Right? So anyway, and then we had these two last ones that we weren't able to do, right? But we most likely can answer for ourselves based on the techniques that we had learned. Well, gosh, basically just what we read so thoroughly, right? That I read to you. You should be able to figure out what the answers are. So, and now we have another vocabulary one, right? So the author's use of the word throbbing in line 1 implies that leaven, right? And so when we think about line 1, let's go back to that. So I'm keeping it in this way just because whenever I go back when the presentation style you saw, it was just a ride. Maybe you liked the ride, but it got kind of dizzy, right? So at 4 o'clock, conscious of his throbbing heart, Levin stepped out of a hired sled at the zoological gardens, right? And so even though we don't need to replace it with another word, we still are seeing the context and seeing like, okay, what does this mean, right? It's an inference question, right? By using, it's like a combined vocabulary and inference question. So conscious of his throbbing heart, he's aware of his throbbing heart. So he's nervous somehow, right? Um, and he turned along the path to the frozen mounds and the skating ground, knowing that he would certainly find her there, right? The love of his life, so to speak, right? His friend turned, crush, you know. So you think about the heart throbbing. Well, now like she's his heart. She's what makes his heart throb. So he knew she was going to be there. So we know that he's nervous. We know that he wants to see this girl. We know that he's anticipating, expecting her to be there, and he's terrified, right? As we read in the rest of the text, right? So let's go back to that. So this implies that he has cut himself badly. Is he wounded? Right? Is he bleeding? Okay, no. All right. Has a sudden pain in his chest? Well, physically, maybe, right? Literally, we would say, okay, yeah, maybe he is experiencing some pain, but is that really the true nature of of his condition, so to speak, right? Is he having a heart attack? Is his heart throbbing because he's having some sort of a heart attack? And so biologically speaking, physically speaking, is he suffering in that way? And that sort of pain, it's a different type of pain, we could say. But even so, you may go ahead and say like, okay, tick that off. Is about to collapse? Maybe because he's so nervous, right, about her. But once again, that's referring to some sort of physical state that he's suffering physically. And then D is in an agitated state. Can we say that? Agitated, nervous, not calm, right? Worried, right? Can we say that? Okay, yeah, we could say that, right? And so, as you can see, as I am trying to arrive at this answer, right, we're seeing how I'm using synonyms, right? Talking through the definition in order to arrive at that answer. Okay? All right then. So on that last one, based on the tone of this passage, what emotion does the author wish the reader to feel about Levin? Okay. Empathy. So when we think about empathy, we think about, does the author want us to feel what he's feeling? Right? To empathize, to say, oh, I understand. I can imagine what you're feeling. I can imagine being in his position. And as I was reading, we kind of could, right? I imagined myself and how I was when I was in high school. So I kind of was able to kind of empathize with him. But let's move on, right? Cynicism. What do we know about the word cynicism? Well, cynicism is kind of like your negative, right? Kind of pessimistic, when you're cynical, I think cynical, critical, right? Right. So it has kind of a negative connotation, right? Um, and so uh, I wouldn't say that, because did we feel negative while we were reading that? Mm, no. And the same goes for the other ones, right? If we really look at it, right? So hostility, what do we think of, right? What other words do we think of when we think about hostility? Anger, violence, right? Aggravation, right? Are we aggravated? Does he seem aggravated? Or does he seem hostile? Does it seem like he wants to hurt someone? No, right? Disgust. Oh, another negative word. Disgust. Disgusted about what? He's talking about how it's like the waters parted when he sees her, like that there's the sun is surrounding her when he sees her, right? And so are we disgusted about that? Now, some of us, we may be disgusted reading it because we don't like reading love stories, right? We don't want to read about the guy loving the girl loving the guy. Please, right? So maybe we feel disgusted, right? But what does the author want us to feel? Right, based on his or her word choice. Well, his Leo Tolstoy. Like, what does he want us to feel? Right? He wants us to feel that anticipation. He wants us to feel, that kind of that fear, the emotion welling up inside, right? So as you can see, with these last two questions that we did, we used our knowledge of vocabulary and our ability to build on vocabulary with what we know, other words with synonyms, right? And then also antonyms. We're like, okay, is it this or could it be that? No, it actually we saw that it was opposite to that, right? To some of these things, okay? So as you can see, the vocabulary is always important, right? And so let's check our answer. So D and A, we were right. Okay, so you see how that works, right? So we're able to wrap up yesterday, but then also it guided us into today with the focus on the vocabulary. Okay, all right then. So I know you can just see my face. um, Let me then bring up back our PPT for today. Okie dokie. I'll close that. Let me reopen that so that we can see it. And let me share my screen again. Okay. All right then. So let's dive deeper into vocabulary. Now, how many of you actually love studying vocabulary? Let's be honest, right? Okay, so when it comes to the test, some people may be quite afraid of it, right? Because, it's a difference between getting the answer right or wrong, right? But what I would like you to do is to kind of get excited about vocabulary. When you think about learning, just in general, education, expanding your horizons and your knowledge base, being able to understand, right, opens a lot of doors for us. So if you look at it as a way for you to increase your understanding, not just about getting a higher score on a test, but how it can increase your understanding of the world and of other people, right? other text, other novels, other pieces of writing. That's actually really exciting. Well, it's exciting to me. Of course, I'm the educator, right? I'm not in your shoes right now. I'm not a student anymore. Well, actually, I am. I am a student, right? I'm actually a business student. I'm actually pursuing my MBA, right? And so, when I'm in my classes, there are a lot of things that I don't understand, right? But I'm still excited. Why? Because I'm excited about the possibilities. I'm excited about, what else I have to learn. I don't see it as a block or as a hindrance. I see it as a way to be able to do more, right? And so when we look at vocabulary, when we look at expanding, our word base, try to, at least trick yourself into enjoying the process, right? Because the more you know, the more access to information you have, right? And then ultimately, the easier the test will be for you, right? So let's look at, as we said before, the synonyms, antonyms, prefixes, and suffixes as a way to build our vocabulary. So, how can we build words? Now, let's just look at just some regular words, right? And let's kind of go through that process that I kind of guide us through before, right? So, so here's some words, right? So when we think of these regular words, right? Dark, dawn, dead, decay, deduct, right? So start with what you know, right? So you start talking about it in other terms, right? Talk your way through it. When something is dark, sometimes I think of shadows. What else do you think of? Something is dark. Also, you may think of maybe it's sometimes something negative, right? Shadow, negative, it's opposite to light, it's opposite to enlightenment. Um, what else? I think also I'm associating with, dark mood, perhaps, right? Um, or something that is let's see, what else can we say when it talks about mood? It could be depressing, right? When it can be what negative, depressing. It can be, or even refer to shades, hues, right? Um, and so, let's see. Okay, so let's go back because I don't want you to see all of that. Okay, so let's continue. All right, so with this one, um, we think for me I put like shadows, depressing, dark. Also can refer to hues like shades, right? Maybe a mood. Okay, so the antonym of dark we think is naturally light. I also thought of just enlightenment, which is very similar, right? Also maybe bright or vibrant. Okay. Or actually maybe even clear. Maybe. It's okay, right? We're brainstorming. Okay. So what about dawn? When we think about dawn, we think of I immediately just thought of something like beginning, like the start of the day. What else can you think of when you think about dawn? The dawn, um, start, the beginning. What else can be related to dawn, right? Oh, actually, another use of the word dawn, it's like it dawned on me. It's like like this realization, right? That's one way it's used. Realization, right? Okay. So we think about in terms of like your thoughts. Okay. So what would be the opposite of that? So if it's not the dawn, I think of dusk, right? At the end. The end. Oops, sorry. The final. Okay. All right. Whew, okay, so dead. Wow. We need, we need something more positive, right? So when we think about dead, right? um, we think about maybe mortality. We think about maybe another word for dead is just death. Dead. What else? Well, you're not living. That's for sure. Okay. Dead could also mean not working or not functional. So not working or not functional, right? Okay. So antonyms, right? So what's the opposite of dead? Alive. Okay. Right? I want to say awake for some reason, right? You're alive, you're awake. Um, uh, oops, sorry. Or just lively, right? Sometimes you may go to a party and you're like, oh, this party is dead, right? So you could say that it's lively happening, um, lively or just life. Okay. Decay. When we think about decay, what are some other words we can think of in relation to decay? I think deteriorate. Right? Well, actually, we think about death. We may also think about something rotting. Ugh. Yeah, to decay, right? Or something to waste away. Okay. So if you're not decaying, you are, I think, because if you're not wasting away, maybe you're growing of some sort, right? You're growing. You are, I think of sprouting. I think of plants. Um, mm, so if you're not decaying, so for me, then also it's life, right? Because decaying is like rotting, and if you're not rotting, so I think about just life, right? Um, I think of fresh as well, right? Okay. And the last one, sorry if my handwriting is not so great, right? I don't have that nice teacher handwriting, but hopefully you can see and understand. Um, okay, so when we're deducing, right, we're kind of drawing conclusions. When I think to deduct, I think of figuring out. I think of solving. Okay. If you're not drawing conclusions, what exactly are you doing? Right? If you're not drawing conclusions. Actually, also, I think of guessing. So the word that came from me, when you're not drawing conclusions or trying to figure it out, you're clueless. You're not trying to figure it out. You're like clueless. You're kind of lost. You have no idea what's going on, right? Or you're also maybe, not short-sighted, right? But I want to say lack of process of some sort. Sorry, right? So as you can see, before I even gave you words, right? I'm encouraging you to kind of think on your own. And this is what you need to do with the test. You need to think on your own. Okay? You need to kind of try to figure some things out and talk your way through it. That's how you get through these tests, right? So, okay. So now I'm going to erase that. Hold on. I know all of our hard work gone. Okay, let me see if I can go ahead and erase this. Okay, erase all the ink on the slide. So do you remember what we put? Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a picture of it. Okay, so it's not necessarily erased, right? Okay. Okay, all right then. So I have it saved. Okay, so let's compare, right? So with dark, synonyms we had were dismal, black, right? Okay. With dawn, we had, actually, let's just do everything, right? So we can do it. So dark, we had dismal, black, right? Antonyms would be light. Okay, right? With dawn, daybreak, oh, that's a good one. And sunrise, yeah, actually, those are really good words, right? When we think about the start and the beginning. And the opposite is just the evening, the end, right? Kind of closing down, shutting down. Excuse me. Okay, so dead, lifeless, deceased, very good words, right? And antonyms would be alive, active. So we had the alive, but we didn't have the active. So that's good, right? Because when you're dead, you're not active, or when something is dead, right? Think about, the battery in your computer. That happened to me the other night, right? It's like nothing's happening when the battery's dead. Decay, rotting, spoiling, very good words, right? Maybe you thought of it, okay? Antonyms for that are blooming, flourishing, right? Growing, right? Yeah, I think of flowers. So to deduct, so this was looking at different reasons. I was thinking about, thinking in the process, and this is more of like to subtract and remove, and then the antonym for that is to add. So, okay, let's look at some more words. Okay, so defend. When you defend someone, what are you doing? I think, okay, to stick up for someone. Oops. Oh, wow. What happened there? It's good. We have a rogue, a rogue um, pointer. Let's erase all those. We didn't want all that. What happened? Let's try that again. Let's try that again. I apologize. And so let's go back to our pen. Okay. To defend. Stick up for, I think. And to defend, when you're not defending someone, all right, what are you doing? I have this word in my mind, like kind of giving up, right? I have that just for some reason, like giving up. You're not defending. You're like giving in somehow, right? To defy, right? To defy, I think sometimes to challenge or go against, right? If you're not defying, maybe you are agreeing. To be delicate is like to be fragile, perhaps, right? To be the opposite of fragile or delicate is maybe sturdy. To demolish is to destroy, right? And but the opposite of to destroy is to build. to denounce, right? To denounce it is to, I don't want to say criticize, but to, how should I say? Or maybe to reject. Okay. And if you're not rejecting, maybe you're accepting. Okay. All right. Let's see. All right. So I'm going to save that. Okay. And we're going to erase. Oops, sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I need to erase everything. We're not going to erase word by word. So, okay. What do we have? Okay. So if you're defending, you're protecting, you're shielding, right? And if you're not protecting or shielding, you're attacking or assaulting. So, okay. Yeah. To defy, to resist, to challenge. And if you're not resisting or challenging, you're obeying and complying, right? You are agreeing, right? You're just like, okay, yes, I'm going to go by the rules. Delicate, fragile, dainty. That's a good word, to be very dainty. I think of those doilies that maybe your grandmother used to crochet. It's very dainty, very thin, right? And then as we see here, it shows our word. If you're not dainty or fragile, you're sturdy. To demolish, to destroy. We use that wreck, another good word. But if you're not wrecking or destroying, you are restoring. I like that word too, right? To bring back to life, to, or even to like to renovate, right? To denounce, to blame or censure. And to, if you're not blaming, you're commending, right? So it's like when you commend someone, you're giving some sort of praise. Okay. So here are some tips. As you are, actually, I'm going to do all the tips, okay, in terms of what you can do to build your own vocabulary. So do what we just did, right? So you're thinking, I don't have time for that. You need to make time, right? So you need to actively improve your vocabulary. So even say when you're just reading, because you need to read more. That's it. You need to read stuff, not fluffy stuff. You need to read a different variety of text, different genres, right? And different levels. Push yourself outside of your comfort zone. And as you are reading, underline those words, that the word or words that you aren't familiar with. Create your own dictionary. I like to call it a vocabulary journal. Oops, let me go back to my pen here. So I like to call this a vocabulary journal. So as you're creating your vocabulary journal, and please be creative. You don't have to write, say if this is your notebook. Okay, let me see, where's my pen? Oh, here we go. So if this is your notebook, as you can see, I am not really good at drawing, but that's okay. You don't have to do your entry like 1, 2, 3, something like that. And then you're just basically, like it says, make your own dictionary. Why don't you make associations? Maybe you're doing like a web, right? Where you have the word here. And then as you think of other words, right? Adding on to it, right? Or, draw pictures, memes. That's something fun. Have a digital dictionary and have memes and pictures associated with it. And I'm just going to write the word pictures. Draw. Right? And that helps you to remember it or make associations with situations. Okay? Especially when they're funny or goofy, right? You're more likely to remember something that has some sort of emotional tie to it. Okay. And yes, you can make sentences with words, right? If you like to. But also, you know, when you come across a word, go ahead and look it up in the dictionary. Use dictionary.com, Webster, any, you know, any online resource. Google it, right? Google it. And if you are an ESL learner, say that if English is not your first language, I like to use the Learner's Dictionary. Let me write that down here. Let's see, where's my pen? Oh, here it is. If you put Learner's Dictionary, and that gives definitions that aren't so advanced, if we can say that. So it's like sometimes, because I remember when I was a kid, we had a big red Webster's dictionary. The definitions were meant for adults, they weren't meant for kids. So we ended up, when we looked up a word, we ended up having to look up the words in the definition because the words used in the definition were also hard, right? But when we have our learner's dictionary, right, that's meant for that's meant to have simplified meanings. So they don't use such advanced words, right? They understand that, hey, look, I'm just learning these concepts, I'm learning these new words. You know, they're going to simplify it for you. Okay. Okay, so let's look at some prefixes, right? That you may already know, that kind of help us to figure out the definition of words or the meaning of words, right? Even if you may not get the perfect definition, the perfect meaning, which is okay, right? So yeah, so let's go ahead and preview this. So, what is a prefix? A prefix is a group of letters placed before the root of a word, right? And we know that we have different roots. In English, we have Greek and Latin root words, right? Prefixes are commonly used in a person's title. So, for example, let's see them. So the word unhappy consists of the prefix un, which means not, right? So it comes before. Combined with the root or stem word happy. The word unhappy means not happy. Yeah, I know, that was very simple. That was very, very simple. Okay, but that's just so you can understand the concept. So here are some prefixes that you may be familiar with, that you should be familiar with, right? So con, right, means like with or jointly. And also, you'll notice too, if you speak other languages, such as like Latin-based languages, like if you speak Italian, Spanish, French, you're going to see and recognize some of the root words, right? And then see like and be able to figure out the meaning, you know, based on knowing those languages, um, knowing that what they are in the other languages, right? Just because of the relation to like the similarity with like the Latin roots. Okay, counter is opposite. If you have D or duh, how you want to say, reduce or take away. Deca, you know, decathlon, right? 10. Okay, so here's some sample words. To concur. To concur is like to kind of agree. It's like I concur, yeah. Contradict, to go against, right? What was stated. Counter, the opposite, counterclockwise, right? So we have the for reduce away, debug, to take away the bugs, right? Especially in the computer, and decathlon, right? Okay. Here are some more that you are probably familiar with and you didn't realize. So demi means half, die to, dia through, dis, do the opposite, or dis, dys, abnormal. Now, can you think of any words that may go with those prefixes? With demi, with die, I think dissect. Dia, diameter, I think about that one. Is there another word for that? that we can think of? Disagree. Dysfunctional, right? Okay. Oh, demigod. Yeah. Half god. Oh, diverge. Go off into another direction. Diameter, which was what I thought. Oh, discontinue, right? It no longer is continued, right? It's no longer available. And dysfunction. I thought of that as well. Okay. What about these? So, en to cause, endo, internal, epi, among, after, equi, or equi, equal, ethno, race, nation. All right. So, when we think about, what are some words we can think of when we think about en? Not at first, I'm like involved, but that's in. That's not n. And no, and tail, entail, maybe. Endothermal, I think. Endothermic, the epicenter. Equidistant, right? Equitable. Ethnographic, like an ethnographic study. Enable, that's a better word. Oh, endocrine system, inside with the does that relate with the hypothalamus? Where are my scientists here? This with the hormones, I believe, the endocrine system, it's internal inside. Epidemic, what we're going through right now. Well, now it's a pandemic, right? But it was at first an epidemic. Equidistant, yeah. And ethnography, what I was thinking as well. Okay. So now let's look at the suffixes. The prefixes were at the beginning. The suffixes are at the end. So a suffix is a letter or group of letters added at the end of a word, which makes a new word. So, for example, the word flavorless consists of the root word flavor combined with the suffix less, which means without. The word flavorless means having no flavor. Once again, that's a very simple definition or a very simple word, right? So, like, of course, we can see it, right? So it's the less is easily identifiable. So, Asian, action or process, right? I think filtration, ative, tending to, normative, and I think creative, but I don't think that's it. No, I don't think that's not really attached to a root word. Side, the act of killing. When we think of that, we think genocide, right? Cracy, rule, government, autocracy, democracy. Crat, someone who has power. Autocrat, right? Yeah, bureaucrat. Okay, so we have creation. So I was thinking creative with the other one, which, okay, yeah, it was a part of it. So creation or narration, right? The process for the Asian. For ative, creative, or preservative, okay? Side, homicide, suicide. Oh, Lord, yes. Gosh, we got some negative words today. We need something that's more uplifting these days. Cracy, bureaucracy, or aristocracy. We have aristocrat, bureaucrat for crat. Okay. So we're winding down as we look at more. It should be suffixes. Sorry, that is a typo. That's my bad. Okay. So cule, I think molecule, diminutive. C, state. Something. I think of democracy because we've had like kind of like the aristocrat, and I thought about like you think Democrat, right? And so I think democracy, the state of democracy. Cycle, right? Circle, wheel. Well, bicycle, right? It's tricycle. Dumb, kingdom, condition of. Dox, paradox, belief, praise, orthodox, right? Oh, molecule, yes. Oh, see? Oh, okay. These are better words. Efficiency, privacy. But, always challenge yourself to try to think on your own and come up on your own, right? Sometimes with these, I don't look at it beforehand because I want you to see me go through the process, right? Sometimes you make mistakes and sometimes you're not right on the money, meaning you're not completely accurate, but you need to get used to being able to figure things out on your own instead of just being given the right answer, because on this test you don't know what that right answer is immediately. You have to work through it. You have to challenge yourself. It's just like with math and you're used to relying on the calculator. What happens? This stops working as efficiently, right? You stop trying to calculate on your own. I need you to start trying to calculate on your own and figure things out on your own. Work through it, walk through it, talk yourself through it. Okay, so done. Boredom, freedom. You're probably bored by this. At the end of this, right? You're like, oh, this is the last thing I want to do is to be studying vocabulary words with docs. And yep, those are the two words that I thought of: orthodox, paradox. Okay. Once again, typo should be suffixes. Um, ectomy, I think about, yeah, the surgical removal of an appendectomy, right, when you got your appendix. Okay, ed is like the past tense. That's any verb, and you put ed, right? I think referee, receiver, performer, referee, employee, right? Um, ear associated with hmm, hmm. I want to say domineer, but I don't think that's right. Ear. C D E F G H I. Yeah, I think of domineer for some reason. That's all I can think about. Okay, that's fine. Anemia, right? When you're anemic, right? Without low iron. Okay. Appendectomy, yes. Ah, well, okay. Now I'm seeing what the the examples. Past tense, hammered. Nominee, employee, yeah. Ear, engineer, volunteer. Okay, all the ears, right? And then hypoglycemia. Oh, okay, that's a good one. Yes. Okay, so this is what I'm ending with, just to show you a resource, right? This is something that you can do on your own. Like I said, look things up, Google, right? Not that I'm endorsing Google, but it's just something that you're familiar with, right? So you can look up resources, go to the library. I would love for you to go to the library. We need to support our libraries, right? Find books on vocabulary and Greek and Latin words. But when we can't do that because maybe it's closed because of COVID, right? We can't frequent our library like we used to. You can look up. Let's see if this will open up. Okay, I found a PDF. Sorry, let me close that. For the Greek and Latin roots, so I kind of refer to that quickly, especially say if you speak another language that's a Latin-based language, or if you speak Greek, right? You can figure out the meaning of words. And you will see, and there's a lot of them, guys, there's a lot of them. So if we just kind of skim through, just as we're concluding our class, you'll see some things that you may not have realized before, okay? So starting with, so it's a combination, right? When we look at the Greek and Latin roots, it's combining prefixes and suffixes and some root words, right? Um, so yeah, and it gives, and I like how it gives kind of the origin and then the definition and then some examples here. So you can find this online. Just Google Greek and Latin roots, and you'll find resources. Put PDF, right? And you can start just reviewing and going over them. Acidic, sour, acid, acidosis, acra, right? Height, summit, tip, which I didn't really think about before, right? When we think about, acrobatics, acronym, interesting, right? So you can go through, yeah, Adipose, yeah, adipose tissue, the fatty tissue. Aero, we know there's aeroplane, aeronautics, aerosol, right? Something that's in the air, in the atmosphere. So like agriculture, agronomy, yeah. Oh, that's different from the agra and then the agri, right? Okay. So as you go through, you're going to see so many of these things that you may not have realized, right? And but like you said, the more you know, the more access to information that you have, the better that you understand. This should be the driving force, right? Being able to understand more, right? And so maybe you're not naturally interested. That's okay. That's okay. But I challenge you to kind of push yourself outside of your comfort zone. Right. And as you can see, as we're scrolling through, okay, yeah, this arthritis, arthropod, yeah, yeah, astronomy, okay. So yeah, some things that you may not have realized, right? As you go through, and the list goes on and on and on, right? Oh, this is interesting. I didn't know this one. Blend, slime. Sorry, when I think of slime, I think of Nickelodeon, how they used to slime people, right? So that's the words that are associated with that. Um, okay, bon, yeah, good. Bonify, bonitere, or even in French they say bon, yeah. Um, interesting. Boreal. I didn't realize that. North. When you think about the north, the borealis, when you basically go up to see, the lights. So, and there you go. All right. So I encourage you to push yourself and explore and never stop learning. Okay. Have a good evening. That concludes our class today.